when we make little movies, cute, or like go make your little movie, starts to get dangerous when women have their hands on a lot of money.
Yes, it is. It is absolutely so dangerous when women get their hands on a lot of money, according to Maggie Gyllenhaal. Specifically, radical feminist Hollywood women. Renegade Online. If you're Maggie Gyllenhaal and you are walking into Warner Brothers or Universal and Sony and whoever else, Paramount, that she went and pitched this idea to called The Bride. Maggie Gyllenhaal doesn't just go into the studio to ask for a normal horror movie budget. No. This chick somehow manages to walk out of the door with not only a green light to make a feminist screed of a film, but she gets almost $100 million. I don't know if somebody at Warner Brothers was sitting down that year when they greenlit this turd. And you know what? We made a lot of really successful things, and we got a lot of guys, doing movies. They're all directing all this. We have to spend, in order to get our DEI and ESG metrics up this year, we have to give some female director an obscene amount of money to go make a personal therapy session. That's the only legitimate reason. This is the only reason I can come up with that Warner Brothers actually shelled out $80 to $90 million for this film to be made. That's before they spent a dime marketing the thing. And the result, of course, is what we all know now. The Bride, after 10 days in the box office, has managed to pull in a whopping $11 million in a domestic run. $11 million in 10 days. Remember this? Talked about this before. Went to go see this Monday night last week. Undertone, a horror movie, right? Which, let's be honest, regardless of what Maggie Gyllenhaal thinks, The Bride, with the Bride of Frankenstein and the monster, played by Christian Bale, still sells visually to an audience, generally, as a horror film, except, of course, it really wasn't. It was just Maggie Gyllenhaal pounding her fists, talking about how much she hates men, right? Undertone, from A24. $9.3 million in its first 3 days. This is an original horror film. It's not based on a book or a video game, insofar as I know. This was a totally original piece. Horror genre, A24. So it's not even coming out from Paramount and Warner Brothers or Sony, where they've got, they're known for cranking out horror films, especially Paramount and Warner Brothers. And they have big budgets for marketing horror films. A24, obviously a lot smaller than Warner Brothers or Paramount. $9.3 million in the first 10 days. Now, let's see if we can figure out, maybe, what was the problem with The Bride?
I was thinking about this moment because on the one hand, we've had all these interesting, films come out just this year. Chloe Zhao with Hamnet, Lynn Ramsey with Die My Love, Kristen Stewart with The Chronology of Water. But
talking about Hamnet. So here's Hamnet, $24 million last year in 2025, came out late 25, $75 million internationally, worldwide box office of $99 million. Check it out, right above me, right there. What does that say, kids? Production budget estimated between 30 and 35 million. And even 30 to 35 million for a film like this, to me, is expensive. Got almost 100 million at the box office. I think we can reasonably assume, at least from a production cost standpoint, Hamnet covered its floor. Hamnet covered its cost. It was by Focus Features, not a big company, right? 80 to 90 million. Literally 3 times almost as much that Maggie Gyllenhaal got for The Bride than this. We're going to talk about Chloe Zhao and Hamnet. And I'm going to tell you right now, The Bride is not getting anywhere near $100 million.
on the other hand, there's only 8% of films that were made by women.
Considering the financial results, it's probably a good thing. and especially with modern Hollywood liberal socialist women. Because let's be frank, first of all, how many conservative men are operating in Hollywood? Few to none. There are people like Sylvester Stallone that get a pass, but basically nobody else. Look at our friend Matthew Marsden, blacklisted from Hollywood because he came out as a conservative 15 years ago. How many conservative women do you think there are in Hollywood? Less than zero? How many less than zero conservative women are there? No, they're all basically like Maggie Gyllenhaal.
And that's a 7-year low.
Again, considering the source of women from Hollywood, good. This is a good thing.
I mean, what do you think that says?
It says that audiences don't want them.
I'm thinking about whether to say this.
Say it.
Say it.
I think that it's fine. Like when we make little movies, cute.
It's fine. We make little movies. Listen to her tone of voice. Look at her face. Look at her facial. Look at the body language. She is about to go full feminist screed.
I think that it's fine. Like when we make little movies, cute, you know, or like go make your little movie. Starts to get dangerous when women have their hands on a lot of money.
Yes, it is. It is absolutely so dangerous when women get their hands on a lot of money, according to Maggie Gyllenhaal. Specifically, radical feminist Hollywood women. What's a little movie to her? Clearly to me, in the context of this, Maggie Gyllenhaal is talking about how much money. Like, we're not talking about, like, she's not talking about we're making a big blockbuster 4-quadrant Super Mario Brothers or Minions or Project Hail Mary, for example, from Amazon. She's just talking about how much money do I get?
Starts to get dangerous when women have their hands on a lot of money.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
Yes, it's really dangerous. Maggie Gyllenhaal gave this interview before this movie came out, like right before. And then this happens. And this is why I think Maggie Gyllenhaal just absolutely destroyed, or at least did massive critical damage to the chances of other women in Hollywood even getting a shot. In somebody like Maggie Gyllenhaal's world, the impact is more important than the business side. And what people like Maggie Gyllenhaal don't care about, don't know about, or have completely forgotten about, because why not? They're using other people's money. She's using a man's money.
Like if you've had your mouth shut for so long, almost like a geyser, like having your hand on something. Well, when it bursts, it's going to come out really powerfully.
What?
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Oh, I get it. Maggie Gyllenhaal is one of these women that believe that everything since Donald Trump got elected for women everywhere, all women, is the Handmaid's Tale. You know what they say about a tree falling in the forest, right? This is the tree falling in the forest, a $90 million tree.
I actually think that when I really became a director was actually, I think, the first time, that the morning that Trump was first elected.
Ah!
I think I was like, I have a lot more to say than I've been saying.
She decided she woke up the morning after Donald Trump got elected in 2016 and said, that's it, I'm a director. I don't think she's ever directed anything before now. And she will never direct anything else again. At least not with this kind of, nowhere near this kind of money. Because she didn't just go out there and cry in her car and make a TikTok video of herself screaming, which I don't know if she did, but she probably did. A TikTok video of herself screaming in the air after Trump was elected. Her therapy wasn't doing a TikTok or a Snapchat. Her therapy wasn't joining a bunch of women out in the field or on the shoreline in Malibu somewhere, you know, while she was drinking white wine or whatever and screaming at the ocean over Trump. No. This woman went in and convinced somehow Warner Brothers Studio to hand her almost $100 million for her to go have a feminist therapy session. Let me math this to death. And she said a lot of what was in the article there. But, you know, I woke up that morning after Trump was elected, and I knew I was a director. Here's The Bride. It's pretty much done. It's $7 million after its opening weekend. After 10 days, it's at $11 million. It's cooked. It's over. It's done. Almost $100 million, $80 to $90 million before marketing spend. Ladies and gentlemen, what is the typical budget that a Hollywood studio would grant to a horror picture? Brand new horror picture that we just had with Undertone. $500,000. $500,000. You want to go out there and make it, and she's thinking every woman is going to love The Bride. Every woman is going to love my movie. I'm going to speak for all women. This is the typical liberal woman's mindset, that they're magically oppressed somewhere, somehow, but yet they can't explain it by the mere fact that Donald Trump is the president, and that they believe that every other woman on earth thinks this way. Undertone is a bit of an extreme example, right? Brand new franchise, micro-budget horror film, $500,000. That's like the Blair Witch Project 25 years ago getting done for $60,000. You know, that kind of thing. I don't think that's going to do Blair Witch money. I'd love for it to, because it really was a fun movie. Let's talk about Scream 7. How about Scream 7? The seventh entry in a 30-year-old, nearly, horror movie franchise. Scream 7. $150 million worldwide. What was the allocated budget by Paramount for Scream 7? It was $45 million. Half of what they gave Maggie Gyllenhaal for The Bride. How about Five Nights at Freddy's in 2023? Y'all remember what Universal Studios paid to buy outright the project? They bought it from Jason Blum and Scott Cawthon. Scott Cawthon, the creator of Five Nights at Freddy's. A video game franchise that has like a gajillion kids that have been playing it for years, right? Had a built-in horror movie fan base for Five Nights at Freddy's. They made this movie for $25 million. $25 million. Now, Universal, I think, paid above and beyond because they took the streaming rights and everything, and they wanted to get into the franchise. We know that Scott Cawthon and Jason Blum, with Blumhouse, of course, made bank on it before they sold a single movie ticket. But production cost $25 million. $25 million for this. Actually, less than $25 million. Almost $300 million at the box office. Five Nights at Freddy's. Five Nights at Freddy's 2. How about that one? Same story. Guess what? Production budget, about the same. $25, maybe $30 million is what was allocated to make this film. Might have even come in lower than that. Another $240 million almost worldwide for Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Again, a known franchise with a big built-in audience base, even for a horror film, right? Sinners from Warner Brothers last year. Sinners was given almost the same amount of money as Maggie Gyllenhaal. Remember this? Sinners was like $80 million, to which we all scratched our heads and said, what in the flaming why would Warner Brothers dump that kind of money? Now, granted, Sinners turned out to be a good investment for Warner Brothers. But at the time that they greenlit the money for Sinners, absolutely no reason for it whatsoever to greenlight $90 million for this movie. It's a horror movie, okay? You can get that for things like It, when you have big production and you got Stephen King and it's and even that was kind of crazy. The same thing is to be said of The Bride. In this case, The Bride was given an absolutely outrageous sum of money that is in no way comparable to anything else, even at the same studio. Why? Probably because it was going to be a feminist, woman-directed, most of the, the cast, the crew, and all this. It's going to be about a strong female character directed by a brand new female director. It was a DEI project. And unlike Sinners, The Bride failed. And why? Because at least with Sinners hit the metric. Male audiences. Horror audiences are male-driven audiences. They're not female-driven. Feminists are not going to show up to go see a horror movie, even if it's a lesbian feminist therapy session for Maggie Gyllenhaal. By the way, from the same studio, let's go back again. Boom. Final Destination Bloodlines. Warner Brothers. Another huge hit from Warner Brothers last year. Final Destination Bloodlines. What did they spend on this movie? Like 40 to 50 million? 45 million? Again, are you noticing a theme here? Small budget, simple thing. What was so complicated with The Bride? Nothing. What was really all that complicated with Sinners? Nothing. 20 to 30 million is a lot these days for a horror movie. 40 to 45 million. And if you saw Final Destination Bloodlines and what they did in that opening act, you know where a lot of the money went, and it was worth it. 45 million for this. But somehow, again, the same studio gives Maggie Gyllenhaal $90 million, 80 to 90 million, whatever the it was, to make The Bride. Absolutely ridiculous. But I love these kind of articles. I love these articles from places like IndieWire. Don't let The Bride's box office bomb give you the wrong lesson about ambition and originality.
You serious?
What other lesson is there? It failed miserably, and it proved what everybody already knew. When you make a movie, you have to spend an amount of money on a film that is requisite with what you expect the audience to be. This is why horror movies are so popular with Warner Brothers and Paramount, because they spend relatively low budgets. Here's another one we didn't even bring up. Weapons. Look at Weapons last year, another original movie in that genre. And it went after the horror audience, which is a male-dominated audience. What did they spend to buy Weapons? 30 million? Which means the cost of production for it was even lower than that. It probably wasn't even 20. Remember this? Warner Brothers. Now, at least here with Joker 2 Electric Boogaloo, Warner Brothers had something to go on, even though they completely misinterpreted that. And that was the first Joker film that did $1 billion at the box office right before COVID broke, right? So let's go back to the well. Let's make another Joker movie. But then they completely changed everything, turned it into this weird musical thing, and look what happened. They lost 80% of their butts and seats. Actually, it's probably closer to 85 to 90 because of all the inflation that happened between 2018 and 2024 for ticket prices. $200 million they spent on this. And this movie came out in 2024. And guess what? That's about the same time, according to IMDb, that Maggie Gyllenhaal's The Bride was set into motion. Hollywood cannot keep doing this to itself. The days of DEI are over. They are for the rest of the country by and large, at least in the real places of the country. And even though a lot of businesses aren't admitting it fully and openly yet, they are turning in that direction because they know what a disaster it's been. And I don't know if there's any bigger example in Hollywood history of DEI that has gone absolutely nuts. Because remember, DEI is not just about race swapping a white character to black or whatever. Diversity, equity, and inclusion includes everything that isn't white and male. And in the case of Maggie Gyllenhaal, she fit the bill. Because just as they said in that interview, wow, isn't it so depressing? Only 7% of directors last year for movies that came out were women. Well, Maggie Gyllenhaal didn't do women in Hollywood any favors with this. For the kind of movies that women typically want to direct and want to do, I'm sorry. No, it doesn't command $90 million. No, I'm sorry, it doesn't command $200 million. Yes, they have their place. Yes, they will have an audience, but they're overwhelmingly not going to have an audience anywhere near commensurate with spending $100 to $200 million on the production. But Hollywood feels like, well, we give this kind of money to a man making a big action flick, so therefore we have to be equal. That's the equity part of DEI, and give it to a woman. Even though the results are going to be radically different at the box office than what the guy is doing with an action film. I mean, you could have made both Five Nights at Freddy's movies and Weapons. 2 Five Nights at Freddy's movies and Weapons for what Warner Brothers pissed away on The Bride. And the differences with The Bride, they're going to wind up with maybe a $40 million total box office at the end of the run versus almost $1 billion between Weapons and 2 Five Nights at Freddy's movies. I mean, again, besides Sinners, the last $90 million production I can remember for a horror movie was It. Because I think they spent a total of around $200 million, but that was for the 2 movies. So they averaged out to like $90 million a piece or whatever, if memory serves. Look at what they make. They're still making Conjuring movies, for God's sake. They're not spending more than $15-20 million on a Conjuring movie, and that's a lot. The first Conjuring movie was made for $1 million. Now, you can say, well, Valiant, The Bride really wasn't a horror movie. Sorry, whether you like it or not, that's the genre that it was kind of fit into. When you look at it and you say, who did they make this for? Why did they do this? Who is going to go see this film? You knew right then and there they were in deep trouble. Y'all remember this movie? The Woman King from Sony came out in 2022. Had a very similar story in my mind to The Bride, I think. Because imagine Maggie Gyllenhaal shopping around, and I bet she got rejected from other studios when she asked for what she wanted. This movie had the same thing happen. She wanted to do this movie about an African tribe of women back during the 18th and 19th century that were part of the slave trade and all this kind of stuff. She got a couple of offers. I remember her doing an interview. She got offers for like $2 million and $5 million, but that wasn't good enough. She didn't want to do it for that. She wanted more money. She wanted more money. Sony finally showed up, gave her $50 million. 50. The biggest offer she'd had before was sub 10. Gave her $50 million for this, which was an obscene amount of money for a movie like this. This was not a movie that was going to draw in men, by and large. And again, it was a who was this movie made for? And there's just not enough of who in this type of movie to justify $50 million. Did $97 million at the worldwide box office. Sony scraped by the skin of its teeth. But why did Sony do this? Probably because they needed to hit a DEI metric, which they did, of course. And also Netflix paid for it. So the $50 million Sony threw at this, they were like, yeah, because we're going to get the $50 million from Netflix anyway. Hollywood can't keep doing this to itself. You say, oh, it's about the story. Oh, it's like, the imp like Maggie Gyllenhaal. What did she say? Let's watch that one more time.
Because on the one hand, we've had all these interesting,
what did she say about the imp?
Films come out just this year. Chloe Zhao with Hamnet, Lynn Ramsey with Die My Love, Kristen Stewart with The Chronology of Water. But on the other hand, there's only 8% of films that were made by women. Mm-hmm. And that's a 7-year low.
It'll be less now.
I mean, what do you think that says?
I'm thinking about whether to say this.
Say it.
I think that it's fine. Like when we make little movies, cute, or like go make your little movie. Starts to get dangerous when women have their hands on a lot of money. You know what you're saying? You're saying it's a tiny percentage, but look at how many of those movies were movies that made an impact.
Name one. Name one. Name one of those movies that had an impact outside of your little circle of, white wine slurping friends sitting around eating caviar at Spagos on Beverly Hills, whatever the frickin' Spago is. Seriously, outside of your circle, what impact? Where? Tell me. Name one. Name one that's going to be talked about 6 months from now, 3 days from now. This movie won't be. There's so much self-delusion with these wacko lefty Hollywood people. And they have been having a free ride so long, making these kind of art projects. Remember that we talked about before with Pete Docter at Pixar. Hey, we can't make $200 million therapy sessions for the LGBTQ freak parade they got working at Pixar. The rest of Hollywood can't do it either. And this was a $90 million therapy session for Maggie Gyllenhaal and her Trump derangement syndrome. And now Warner Brothers shareholders are $100 million poorer for it. Thanks, Maggie. Make sure you're subscribed to Valiant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.